Humans defeat the invaders in 24 hours. The Terran resistance strikes back. Dexter's ship groaned as it shuddered violently through space. The sound of metal screeching against the unforgiving void was deafening. Red alarms blared, flooding the cabin with a harsh red light as the navigation system went haywire. He was supposed to be navigating the asteroid belt routine stuff, but somehow everything went wrong. A rogue asteroid, barely visible until it was too late, tore through his ship's hull. Fuel leaked and the emergency systems were failing. He was descending into unknown territory. The control panel fizzled and his heart raced. "God, come on," Dexter muttered under his breath, trying to stabilize the ship. But there was nothing he could do. He pulled the emergency throttle and shot toward the atmosphere of an unfamiliar planet below. The ship screamed through the void, heading for what could be the end. "Just hold together, baby. Just hold together." The stars blurred into a streak of light as the ship's descent quickened, heat building rapidly as friction with the atmosphere began to scorch the hull. Dexter's hands gripped the controls desperately, but they slipped from his grasp as the ship tore apart midair. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the uninviting face of an alien world. When Dexter regained consciousness, the world around him was alien. He blinked his eyes, adjusting to the strange, unfamiliar light of this foreign planet. The air was thick with an almost tangible mist, and the horizon was an ever-shifting canvas of violet and orange. The ground beneath him was soft yet firm, almost sponge-like. A thick, humid breeze whispered through the air, carrying scents he couldn't even begin to identify. But one thing was clear: he was not on Earth anymore. "Where the hell am I?" Dexter gasped, pushing himself up. His head was pounding, and his body ached, but he was alive. His ship had crashed somewhere on the planet's surface. The ship's wreckage was scattered across the desolate landscape, smoking in the distance, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. He staggered toward the wreckage, looking for anything he could use to survive. His survival instincts kicked in. Dexter had been in sticky situations before, flying through hostile zones, navigating space anomalies, but nothing quite like this. Okay, just think. What now? The planet was unnervingly quiet, but Dexter felt an undercurrent of danger. Strange sounds echoed from the distance, like the shifting of massive creatures or something even worse lurking just beyond the horizon. He knew that surviving here would be far more complicated than surviving in space. The planet Elyria felt alive. As he ventured deeper into the unknown terrain, Dexter could sense something or someone watching him. The air shifted. His skin prickled. He wasn't alone. Dangerous terrain and first encounter. The landscape was like nothing Dexter had ever seen. Towering trees with jagged crystalline leaves loomed above him, casting eerie shadows. He stepped cautiously, the ground beneath his feet giving way slightly, as though the earth itself was trying to swallow him. The air felt thick, pressing against him, carrying an ominous weight. Suddenly, something darted from behind a boulder. Dexter barely had time to react before a large thorn-covered creature lunged at him, its spiked tail swishing dangerously close to his face. He leaped back, narrowly avoiding the attack. "What the hell was that?" Dexter muttered, his breath quickening. The creature let out a low growl, its eyes narrowing as it circled him, sizing him up. His hand went to his side, instinctively searching for a weapon, but he had nothing. His mind raced. He knew the creature wasn't going to give up easily. Out of nowhere, a high-pitched screech filled the air, followed by a burst of movement. The creature hesitated, its attention diverted. Dexter didn't wait. He bolted, running as fast as he could, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear something following him. He wasn't sure if it was the creature or something worse. But before he could fully escape, a flash of light and a soft hum filled the air. The creature let out a final screech and retreated, vanishing into the dense foliage. "What the hell?" Dexter stopped dead in his tracks, trying to make sense of what had just happened. A figure emerged from the shadows, a small humanoid figure cloaked in flowing green robes. She was slender but powerful, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the mist around them. She spoke softly, her voice carrying an almost otherworldly quality. "You're lucky to be alive." Dexter, still catching his breath, eyed the stranger cautiously. Who are you?" He tried to keep his voice steady, but the fear and adrenaline were still fresh. "Where am I?" "I am Iris, protector of Elyria," she replied, her tone calm but firm. "And you are on my world. You've been brought here by fate." Dexter took a step back, still unsure whether to trust this strange figure. Great. Just great. I crash on a planet and get saved by some mystical alien, who is probably just as dangerous as that creature. Iris smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in her expression. I am here to help you. This world, it is a place of great power and great danger. But you must listen to me if you are to survive. Help me! Dexter raised an eyebrow, skepticism clouding his features. I don't even know where to start. This place is a nightmare. That creature almost killed me, and now you're telling me you can help. I can, she said, stepping closer, but not without your trust. You will face many challenges here, Dexter, but you also carry a purpose whether you realize it or not. Dexter shook his head, trying to clear his mind. Purpose. Look, lady, all I care about right now is getting the hell off this planet. You may not have a choice in that, Iris replied, her gaze softening. Elyria needs you. Dexter's frown deepened. I don't even know why I'm here. I just want to survive. Surviving is only the first part, Iris said, her tone becoming more serious. Elyria is on the brink of destruction. The forces you are about to face are beyond anything you've encountered in space. Wonderful, Dexter muttered. Just what I needed. Another apocalypse. You'll understand soon enough. But for now, come with me. There's much to prepare for. Iris turned, her glowing eyes guiding the way. Dexter hesitated. This strange woman, no creature, seemed to know far too much about him and the situation he was in. But one thing was clear, she was his only chance for survival on this strange, dangerous world. All right, let's get this over with. Dexter sighed, feeling more lost than ever before, but unwilling to face whatever this planet had in store for him alone. And so he followed Iris into the unknown. Dexter followed Iris through the dense forest of Elyria, the glowing light from her body casting a surreal aura over the path. The thick trees loomed overhead, their branches swaying with a slow rhythmic motion as though the very air was alive. Despite the beauty around him, Dexter couldn't shake the unease building in his chest. He had barely started to understand the extent of his situation, and already everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. How long has this place been like this? Dexter asked, trying to keep the conversation light despite the gravity of the situation. I mean, why does everything feel off? Like it's on the edge of something bad happening. Iris, walking just ahead, glanced back at him, her glowing eyes reflecting an understanding far deeper than he had anticipated. Elyria has always been a place of great power, Dexter, but its power has always come with a cost. Thousands of years ago, the planet was a peaceful place governed by the natural order. But as time passed, the leaders of Elyria grew greedy. They sought to control that power, to harness it for themselves. Greedy, Dexter frowned, trying to piece it together. So that's how the Council of Leaders came to be. They took over because of power. Exactly, Iris replied. The Council of Elyria controls the planet's resources, but they do so through fear and manipulation. The people of Elyria have little say in their future anymore. They serve the will of the Council, an ancient shadowed order that has turned this once serene world into a place of turmoil. Dexter's gaze shifted to the distance. He had been in tough situations before, but nothing quite like this. A planet on the brink of destruction, ruled by a secretive, power-hungry council. He could barely wrap his head around it. So how did the planet go from a peaceful place to whatever it is now? And where do I fit into all of this? Iris' face softened, her expression a mix of sorrow and resolve. Elyria has been under the Council's rule for centuries. The power they have over this world, its resources, its people, and its very essence has twisted it beyond recognition. But you were sent here for a reason. Your presence, Dexter, is no accident. Dexter ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm just trying to survive, Iris. This isn't what I signed up for. I know, she said softly, her voice calming him despite the chaos around them. But your survival is part of something bigger. The planet needs you, and the truth of Elyria lies in the very core of what the Council seeks to destroy. As they continued through the dense forest, Dexter noticed how Iris seemed to carry a heavy weight within her. She moved gracefully, but there was something almost burdened in her every step, something he couldn't quite place. He decided to press further. Iris, Dexter began cautiously, I don't want to pry, but you're not exactly a normal person, are you? I mean, I'm starting to get the feeling there's a lot you're not telling me. Iris slowed her pace, her gaze drifting toward the distant horizon. She seemed lost in thought for a moment before turning back to him, her voice quiet, almost pained. I am not like the others of Elyria. I am a guardian, a protector of the ancient ways. My kind was created to guard the planet's power from being misused, to prevent it from falling into the hands of those who would exploit it. But over time I became something more, something trapped between duty and the harsh reality of the world. You mean you're not just some guardian spirit? Dexter asked, his eyebrows raised. No, Iris replied, her eyes distant. I was once human, a long time ago before the Council took over. They experimented with the very essence of Elyria, trying to enhance themselves using the planet's magic. But they underestimated the forces they tampered with. And when they crossed the line, they turned on those like me who opposed them. They changed us. Me. Dexter's heart sank as he realized the depth of her pain. So you were turned into this A-protector, and now you're stuck fighting a battle you never asked for. Iris nodded. I was one of the last of my kind chosen to guard this land from the darkness that the Council seeks to unleash. But each day it becomes harder to fight, harder to keep going. Dexter looked at her, a mix of sympathy and awe. I don't know what to say. I can't imagine what you've been through. I've done what was needed to protect this planet, she continued, her tone hardening. But there's only so much one person can do. I can't keep the Council at bay forever, and now with you here, we may have a chance to fight back. As they made their way deeper into the heart of Elyria, the air began to grow colder, and the trees grew thicker, their bark twisted and contorted as though alive. Dexter noticed that their surroundings were becoming more unsettling, more dangerous. It was clear that the deeper they ventured into the heart of Elyria, the more deadly it became. Suddenly, a rustling noise broke the silence. Dexter's instincts kicked in, and he immediately turned, scanning the area. Get down, Iris hissed, grabbing him by the arm and pulling him behind a massive tree trunk. They crouched low, hiding from whatever was out there. From the shadows, a creature emerged, a hulking insect-like beast, with scales as black as night and glowing red eyes. Its legs were long and spindly, moving with a disturbing fluidity as it hunted in the woods. Dexter's heart raced as he realized they were being hunted. What the hell is that? Dexter whispered urgently, his breath shallow. A sentinel, Iris replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. They were bred by the Council to protect their secrets. If they find us, they won't hesitate to kill. Great, Dexter muttered under his breath, eyeing the creature. So what do we do now? We wait, Iris said, her hand gripping his arm tighter. We have to stay out of sight. The sentinels are nearly impossible to fight head-on. Our best chance is to move quickly and quietly. Dexter nodded, holding his breath as the creature's glowing red eyes scanned the area. His pulse pounded in his ears, and he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was just the beginning. Elyria had secrets, and it seemed that every step they took brought them closer to uncovering those secrets, and perhaps facing the greatest threat of all. Can we make it through this? Dexter whispered, his gaze locked on Iris. We have no choice, she answered, her tone resolute. We face this together. With that, they remained crouched silent as the creature passed by them, unaware of their presence. But Dexter knew that this was just the first of many tests they would face on Elyria, and he wasn't sure how much longer he could keep up. But for now, they had survived. The tension in the air was palpable as Dexter and Iris moved cautiously through the dense woods of Elyria. The creature they had narrowly escaped still lingered in their minds, but now a new, more dangerous threat was emerging. Dexter had no idea just how dangerous things were about to become. Iris, who had been scanning the area ahead with growing concern, turned to him. Her face, usually calm and composed, now reflected a quiet anxiety. Dexter, she said, her voice a little too sharp. The Council knows you're here. What? Dexter's voice was a whisper of disbelief. How do they know that? I don't know yet, Iris replied, eyes scanning the forest. But I can feel them. The Council's reach extends far beyond the city. They have eyes everywhere, and their network is more extensive than you could imagine. You being here isn't just a coincidence to them. You have a role to play in the unfolding chaos. Their reach, Dexter repeated suddenly, feeling like a small piece in a much larger dangerous game. But they don't know about us, do they, about you and me? Iris shook her head, her lips pressing into a thin line. Not yet, but they are always watching. You and I, our connection will not go unnoticed for long. They will make sure of it. Dexter frowned, trying to piece together the situation. So what happens when they find out about us? Will they come for us? They will come, Iris said, her tone darkening. And when they do, they will do whatever it takes to break us apart. The Council has no tolerance for anyone who threatens their grip on this world. Just then the distant sound of a low hum reached their ears, followed by the faint, unmistakable roar of engines. Dexter's pulse quickened. The Council had already made their move. They're coming, aren't they? He asked, his voice tight. They are, Iris confirmed. They won't stop until they have you, and they won't hesitate to use force. The sound of the engines grew louder, and soon they were no longer just distant noises. Armed hovercrafts appeared above the treetops, their sleek, dark shapes casting ominous shadows over the forest. The search had begun in earnest. Dexter's breath quickened, panic rising in his chest. What now? He asked, his heart pounding in his throat. We're trapped. Iris took a deep breath, her eyes narrowing with resolve. We have to move fast. We can't stay here. Not with them so close. But how are we supposed to outrun them? Dexter's mind raced as he surveyed their options. The woods were dense, but the hovercrafts would easily catch up to them. I will try to slow them down, Iris said, stepping forward. But you need to keep moving. I can't hold them off for long, especially not with your presence here. What do you mean, my presence? Dexter demanded. I'm just trying to survive here. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, Iris replied, her voice softening. But you don't realize how much the Council fears you. They see you as a threat. Not because of who you are, but because of what you represent, an outsider in their carefully controlled world. They will not rest until they've captured you, or worse. Dexter's mind spun. So what, you want me to just run while you fight them off alone? I will fight with everything I have, Iris said, her eyes glowing softly. But I need you to survive. If they capture you, everything we've worked for, everything this planet needs, will be lost. The air seemed to thicken as the first hovercraft swooped down into view, its engines blasting through the canopy. Dexter and Iris took off at a run, darting between trees and thick brush. The Council's hovercrafts were relentless, their searchlights sweeping across the forest floor. Dexter's breath was ragged, but he kept pushing forward, his mind focusing on survival. Iris, how are you going to slow them down? Dexter shouted over the roar of the engines. I'll create a diversion, she said. But you need to keep going. They're looking for you, not me. I'll draw them away, but you have to move fast. Without another word, Iris dashed toward a nearby cliff edge, her form vanishing into the shadows. Dexter didn't stop to question her. He kept running, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He could feel the weight of the chase bearing down on him, the Council closing in on him, the danger pressing from all sides. The chase felt endless. Dexter pushed through the forest, his breath coming in shallow gasps. But even with Iris's diversion, he could sense the Council's forces were closing in. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and the sound of approaching engines filled the air once more. Just as his legs began to tire, a new sound reached his ears. A low, rumbling growl echoed through the trees, and Dexter's heart skipped a beat. He froze in place, listening. Something was moving toward him, something far larger than anything he had encountered so far. He turned, and from the underbrush emerged a creature the likes of which he had never seen. It was massive, its body covered in thick armored plating that shimmered in the dim light. Its eyes were an intense glowing green, and its movements were swift and predatory, a perfect match for the danger they were in. Not now, Dexter muttered under his breath. The creature's jaws snapped open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. It was more than just a predator, it was hunting him. But then, to Dexter's surprise, the creature didn't pounce. Instead, it turned its head slightly, as if sensing something or someone else nearby. A low hiss vibrated through the air. The creature was wary, but its instincts were trained for confrontation. And in that moment, Dexter realized that he might not be alone in this fight after all. Out of the shadows stepped another figure, a large, imposing creature, its scales dark and sleek, its presence undeniably powerful. This one was different from the others. It was no simple predator. This creature was a guardian of Elyria. "I'm not alone," Dexter breathed, his mind racing. The new creature's eyes locked with his for a brief moment before it turned toward the predator. There was something about this creature, a silent, commanding energy that made Dexter feel a spark of hope. Maybe they had a chance after all. "Iris!" Dexter shouted, his voice carrying through the trees. "I think we found some help." The creature, sensing the urgency in his voice, turned back to face him, its stance protective. Dexter wasn't sure what had just happened, but he wasn't about to question it. "I told you," Iris's voice echoed from the shadows. "There are allies in places you'd least expect." Dexter watched as the massive creature and the predator sized each other up. The hunt had taken a new turn, and perhaps, just perhaps, they had found an ally in the fight against the Council. With the arrival of this unexpected ally, Dexter realized something crucial: this planet Elyria was full of surprises. Its creatures, its guardians, were more than just wild beasts. They were part of something much larger, something he was only beginning to understand. The fight was far from over, but for the first time since he crash-landed here, Dexter felt like he might just have a chance. The moon hung low over the landscape, casting a cold silvery light over the dense forest of Elyria. Dexter and Iris stood at the edge of a cliff, gazing out at the sprawling city of Elyria below. It was a city of contradictions, majestic structures rising like ancient monuments, yet shadowed by the growing influence of the Council. Everything they had seen so far on this planet had been leading to one inevitable truth: Elyria was teetering on the edge of something far more dangerous than either of them had imagined. Dexter turned to Iris, his voice low and tense. "Iris, we need to talk. We can't keep running forever. What's really going on with the Council? Why are they so intent on controlling Elyria?" Iris stared out into the distance, her expression distant, almost haunted. "The Council wants to harness the power of Elyria itself. The planet's energy is ancient beyond anything they can understand or control, but they seek to do just that: control it. They've already begun extracting the essence of Elyria from its core, siphoning the planet's very lifeblood to fuel their own agendas." "That sounds catastrophic," Dexter said, his voice heavy with concern. "So they're willing to destroy the planet just to feed their own power?" Iris nodded gravely. "Exactly. They believe they can control the core, the energy of Elyria, to make themselves immortal, unmatched in strength. But doing so will drain the planet dry. It will destroy Elyria, its people, its ecosystems, and everything we fought to protect will be lost." "But why risk it all?" Dexter asked. "Why push forward with such a dangerous plan? They're playing with fire here." "They think they're invincible," Iris replied, her voice colder now. "They've been in control for so long that they believe nothing can stop them. But the energy they seek, it is more dangerous than they realize. It's ancient, untamed. If they keep going down this path, they'll unleash forces they can't control. And when that happens, Elyria will burn." Dexter felt a cold shiver run down his spine as he processed her words. "And we're in the middle of this, aren't we? They'll stop at nothing to make sure we don't interfere. We have to stop them, Dexter," Iris said firmly. "If we don't, it will be too late for Elyria. The Council has already set their plans in motion. They're pulling everything they have into their final push." It was at that moment that Dexter realized the gravity of the situation. The battle ahead wouldn't just be for survival, it would be a fight for the very soul of Elyria. Dexter could feel the weight of his decision pressing on him. He wasn't just an outsider anymore. He had become an integral part of the planet's fate, and that meant he had a choice to make. "Iris, what do we do now?" Dexter asked, his voice unwavering. "We can't let them destroy this place. We need to stop them somehow." Iris's eyes met his, filled with a quiet resolve. "We fight back, Dexter. We expose their lies, rally the people of Elyria. But it won't be easy. The Council has every advantage. They control the military, the resources. They won't give up without a fight." Dexter clenched his fists. "Then we'll give them a fight they won't forget." The next few days were a whirlwind of planning, scouting, and gathering intel. Dexter and Iris made their way to the outskirts of the city, meeting with those who were willing to fight back the oppressed, the rebels, and anyone who had suffered under the Council's rule. It was clear that the planet's people were tired of being controlled, tired of the corruption that had plagued their leaders. The streets of Elyria were filled with whispers of revolt. "We can't do this alone," Iris told Dexter, as they sat by a crackling fire that night. "But we have the power of the people on our side. If we can unite them, we might just stand a chance." "But do we have the strength?" Dexter asked, staring into the fire. "The Council has everything they have. The military, they control the energy of the planet. It's going to take more than just us to stop them." "We don't need to beat them at their own game," Iris replied. "We just need to expose the truth. If we can show the people what the Council is doing, they'll rise up. The strength of Elyria lies in its people, not in the power-hungry leaders who exploit it." Dexter nodded, understanding now that the battle ahead wouldn't be fought with weapons alone. It would be a battle of ideals, one that would take more than just firepower to win. But the question remained, would they have enough support to overthrow the Council's regime? The battle began sooner than expected. The Council, aware of the growing resistance, unleashed their full might against the rebels. The sky above Elyria was filled with the deafening roar of hovercrafts and war machines descending on the city with unrelenting force. The first wave hit the rebel stronghold at dawn, catching Dexter and Iris off guard. The city's defenses crumbled in the face of overwhelming power. "Here they come!" Dexter shouted, grabbing a blaster from one of the rebels. "We can't let them take this place." Iris was already moving, her glowing eyes scanning the battlefield. "Stay close, Dexter. We need to hold them off long enough for the others to regroup." The streets of Elyria erupted into chaos as the Council's forces clashed with the rebels. Dexter fought alongside Iris, using his military training to hold back the advancing forces. But it was clear that their strength alone wouldn't be enough to turn the tide. The Council's forces were relentless, well-equipped, and organized. Dexter's mind raced as he searched for a way to change the momentum. "Iris, we need to hit them where it hurts their power source. If we can take out their energy supply, we'll cripple them." Iris's eyes narrowed. "You're right. If we can disrupt their power grid, we'll slow them down, give the people a chance to fight back. But we'll need to get past their defenses. It won't be easy." "Nothing worth fighting forever is," Dexter said with a grim smile. "Let's do this." Together they made their way toward the heart of the Council's stronghold, dodging blasts and weaving through the chaos. Dexter could feel the weight of the battle bearing down on him. But with Iris by his side, he felt a sense of purpose that he hadn't known before. This wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting Elyria's future. As they reached the power grid's core, Dexter planted explosives at key points, while Iris kept the Council's forces at bay. With a final decisive blow, they set off the charges. The ground shook and a brilliant light engulfed the area as the power grid exploded. The blast sent shock waves through the city, causing the Council's forces to falter. Dexter and Iris had given the people of Elyria a fighting chance. But the war was far from over. The battle had just begun. The night had fallen cold and silent over the battle-scarred city of Elyria. Dexter and Iris had taken shelter in an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city, away from the chaos of the ongoing rebellion. Their victory in the battle earlier that day had given them a brief respite, but something lingered in the air, a tension neither of them could ignore. Iris was pacing back and forth, her mind clearly occupied with something heavier than the battle they had just fought. Dexter watched her concern creeping into his voice. "Iris, what's going on? You've been quiet all night. Something's bothering you." She stopped and turned to face him, her glowing eyes dimmer than usual, filled with a deep, unsettling sadness. "I've just learned something," she said, her voice soft, yet trembling, with the weight of what she had uncovered. "Something that changes everything." Dexter took a step closer, his brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean? What's happened?" "I discovered the Council's true intentions." Iris said, her voice low, filled with the kind of realization that made her stomach churn. "They weren't just after Elyria's energy, they were after me. Specifically, they want to control me, Dexter. They've been manipulating me all along." Dexter blinked in shock. "What do you mean they've been using you?" Iris nodded slowly, the weight of her discovery evident in her posture. "They've known about me for longer than I realized. The truth is, I'm not just a protector of Elyria. I was created for a purpose. They engineered me to be their weapon, their perfect guardian. But I broke free and now they want to reclaim me. They intend to use my powers, my essence, to fuel their own domination. The revelation hit Dexter like a punch to the gut. He took a step back, processing her words. But you've been fighting against them. You've always been on the side of Elyria's people. Why would they? They see me as a resource, Iris interrupted, her voice growing colder. To them, I'm not a person, I'm a tool, and now they will do anything to get me back by any means necessary. How can we stop them? Dexter asked, his mind racing for answers. We can't let them have you, Iris. You're not a weapon. I know what I am, Dexter, Iris replied, cutting him off, her voice shaking. But it doesn't matter anymore. The council will come for me, and if they find me, they'll use me to destroy everything I've been fighting to protect. The weight of Iris's words settled heavily between them, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. The battle outside raged on, but inside the walls of their temporary shelter, the war had taken a more personal turn. Iris, Dexter began, his voice almost pleading, you can't just give in to them. We've come so far. You've given up so much already. Don't let them win now. I wish it were that simple, Iris said softly, looking away, her eyes filled with sorrow. But they have already made their move. They've already set their plan into motion, and if I don't stop them, Elyria will burn. I will burn. Dexter's heart pounded in his chest. He reached out, placing a hand gently on her arm. Iris, listen to me. You don't have to do this alone. We can fight them together. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. You've already done more than anyone could ever ask. But Iris shook her head, the sadness deepening in her eyes. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, Dexter. I'm asking for your understanding. The council won't stop. If I don't sacrifice myself, they'll destroy everything we fought for, including you. Dexter's grip tightened on her arm. And what about us? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. What about what we've built here? What about the life we could have after all this? Iris looked at him, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She had always known that her mission had a price, but now it seemed the cost would be higher than she could bear. I have to choose between you and this world, Dexter, she whispered, between love and duty. The decision weighed on Iris like a boulder, but as the dawn began to break, she knew she had to act. The council was closing in, and with every passing hour the stakes grew higher. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the very soul of Elyria, and that meant sacrifices would have to be made. Dexter watched her from across the room as she stood by the window, staring out at the smoke rising from the city. Iris, he said quietly, his voice thick with uncertainty. Whatever you decide, you don't have to do it alone. I'm with you. I always will be. She turned to face him, her eyes shimmering with tears she refused to shed. I know, she said softly, but this is something I have to do. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Dexter and Iris knew that they had only one shot at stopping the council, one final stand that would either save Elyria or destroy it. But as they moved closer to the heart of the enemy's stronghold, Dexter could see the strain in Iris's eyes. The burden of her decision weighed on her more than she let on. Are you sure this is the only way? Dexter asked, his voice filled with concern. Iris met his gaze, her face resolute. It is the only way, Dexter. The council won't stop. If I don't make this choice, they will use me to destroy Elyria and you. I can't let that happen. But you're sacrificing everything, Dexter said, his voice tight with emotion. You're sacrificing us. Iris reached out and gently cupped his face, her touch tender but firm. I'm doing this for us, Dexter. For Elyria. For everything we've built together. You have to trust me. Dexter's heart ached, but he nodded slowly. I trust you. I always have. The time had come. Dexter and Iris stood together at the gates of the council's stronghold, preparing for the final confrontation. The world around them was dark, heavy with the weight of what was to come. But even in the face of certain danger, Dexter couldn't help but feel a sense of peace, knowing that no matter what happened, they had fought for what was right. I love you, Iris, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I love you too, Dexter, she replied, her voice filled with the same quiet strength. No matter what happens, I will never forget this. You gave me hope when I had none. And with that, they stepped forward together into the heart of the storm, ready to face whatever came next. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of scorched earth as the final battle for Elyria raged on. Dexter stood shoulder to shoulder, with Iris, their weapons raised, facing down the full might of the Illyrian Council's forces. Hovercrafts, drones, and ground troops clashed with the rebel forces, and the streets of the city were torn apart by the sound of explosions and gunfire. The weight of what they were fighting for was not lost on either of them. This was the moment that would determine the fate of Elyria. The Council had done everything in their power to maintain control, but Dexter and Iris had already turned the tide. The rebels had fought their way into the city's heart, and now it was time for the final stand. "We have to finish this," Dexter said, his voice grim but determined. He glanced at Iris, who stood next to him, her glowing eyes narrowing as she surveyed the chaos around them. "I know," Iris replied, her voice steady. "The Council won't stop unless we do." The weight of her words hung in the air. Dexter knew this wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the soul of Elyria. Every move they made could be the difference between victory and defeat, between life and death. But Dexter also knew that he wasn't just fighting for the planet. He was fighting for Iris, for their future, for the hope that they could still build something together after all of this. The battle had escalated beyond anything Dexter had anticipated. The Council's forces were relentless, but the people of Elyria had risen up with a fierce determination. The battle was now a full-scale war, one that would change the very fabric of the planet. Dexter and Iris fought side by side, pushing forward through the streets, each step bringing them closer to the Council's central command. The stakes were higher than ever, and the pressure was immense. Every corner they turned, they were met with resistance, and every victory was hard-earned. "Keep pushing," Dexter shouted as they fought their way through the chaos. "We're almost there." But Iris's gaze was far more focused, her mind fixed on something far greater than the physical battle they were waging. She knew the true danger that lay ahead, the one that none of the soldiers or weapons could defeat. The Council's power lay in their manipulation of the planet's energy, the very core of Elyria itself. If they could reach the heart of the Council's stronghold and destroy their control over the planet, the fight would be over. But it wouldn't be easy. As they neared the central command, the intensity of the conflict grew. The Council's elite forces had set up barricades, and the air was filled with the shrill hum of energy blasts and the heavy thrum of pulse weapons. Dexter and Iris found themselves outnumbered and outgunned, but they didn't stop. "We can't turn back now," Dexter said, determination lacing his voice. He had come too far to give up now, not with Iris beside him, not with Elyria's future hanging in the balance. "I know," Iris replied, her eyes burning with resolve. "We fight until the end." Dexter fought with a ferocity that he had never known. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a protector, a defender of everything that mattered. And as the battle raged on, he kept his eyes locked on Iris, on her strength, her courage, the way she moved with a purpose that seemed beyond anything he had ever seen. Together, they pushed through the final barricade, their combined strength and determination enough to break through the Council's last line of defense. The central command was within reach. But then, just as victory seemed assured, a shadow emerged, an unexpected twist in the battle that neither of them could have foreseen. As they entered the central command's chamber, they were met by the leader of the Council, an imposing figure whose power radiated from every inch of his being. His eyes were cold, calculating, and his voice was like ice. "I knew you would come, Dexter, Iris," the leader said, his tone dripping with disdain. "But it's too late. You fought well, but this is where it ends." "I'm not afraid of you," Dexter spat, his anger rising. "We're taking this planet back." The Council leader smiled, but it was a hollow, terrifying smile. "You think you can win? You think you can defeat me and my forces? You're just pawns in a much larger game. Elyria was never meant to be saved. It was meant to be controlled, and now it will burn." With a swift motion, the leader activated a series of energy fields that encased them in a shimmering cage. Dexter and Iris fought to break free, but the power of the leader's control was overwhelming. They were trapped. "Iris!" Dexter shouted, his voice breaking. "We can't let him win. You have to stop him." Iris's gaze locked with his, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to stop. The weight of their journey, the battles, the sacrifices, it all came rushing to the surface. In that moment, Iris made a decision that would change everything. Iris closed her eyes and focused on the energy around them, drawing on the very power of Elyria itself. She had always known her connection to the planet was deeper than anyone could understand, but now she could feel its energy coursing through her veins. It was the only way. With a powerful cry, Iris released the energy within her, shattering the energy fields that held them captive. The shockwave sent the council leader flying backward, and the chamber was filled with blinding light. Dexter shielded his eyes, feeling the heat of the explosion. But when the light finally faded, he saw Iris standing in the center of the room, her body radiating an intense ethereal glow. "I've done it," Iris said, her voice trembling but strong. "I've severed their control. Elyria is free." But the victory came at a cost. Iris's body, strained by the immense energy, began to falter. Dexter rushed to her side, catching her as she collapsed. "Iris, no!" Dexter shouted, his heart breaking. "Please don't. I'm... I'm okay," she whispered weakly, her eyes fluttering. "I've done what I needed to do. Elyria is free." Dexter held her close, tears welling in his eyes. "I'm not letting you go. Not now. Not after everything we've been through." But it was clear. The battle was over. The council had been defeated, but the cost had been higher than either of them could have imagined. Iris had given everything to save Elyria, and now it was up to Dexter to carry on their legacy. In the aftermath of the battle, Elyria began to heal. The people rose up, rebuilding their world from the ashes of the conflict. Dexter stood at the edge of the city, looking out at the horizon, where the sun was beginning to rise. It was a new dawn for Elyria, but it was also a new beginning for him. He glanced down at the bracelet that Iris had given him, the only thing left of her, the only reminder of their time together. As the winds of change swept across Elyria, Dexter made a silent promise he would ensure that her sacrifice was never forgotten. Elyria would flourish again, and its people would live in peace. But as the world began to rebuild, Dexter knew that the scars of war would remain. The price of their victory had been high, and the future of Elyria was uncertain. But one thing was clear: the love, sacrifice, and strength that had driven them would continue to echo through the ages. The sun rose over the shattered landscape of Elyria, casting its light upon a world forever changed. The air felt different now, less heavy, less burdened by the weight of oppression. The battle for Elyria had left scars across the land, but it had also opened a new chapter in the planet's history. Dexter stood at the edge of a cliff, watching as the first rays of daylight broke over the horizon, signaling the dawn of a new era. Elyria had been torn apart by years of corruption, greed, and war. Its once beautiful forests had been scorched, its cities left in ruin. But despite the devastation, something profound had shifted. The people of Elyria had risen up, and with the fall of the council, the planet had taken its first steps toward recovery. "I never thought I'd see this day," Dexter said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper as he looked at Iris, who stood beside him, her presence still as radiant as it had always been, despite the toll the war had taken on her. "We've fought so hard," Iris replied, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "But the battle is just beginning. Elyria can heal, but it will take time. The people will need to rebuild, and they will need guidance." Dexter nodded, his thoughts heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. "But they can rebuild, right? They can find a way to move forward." "They can," Iris said, a quiet conviction in her voice. "But they have to want it. They have to be willing to embrace the changes that are coming. Elyria has been controlled by fear for so long. Now it's time for the people to take charge. They can make this world their own again." Elyria's recovery would not be quick. The scars of war ran deep, and the wounds left by the Council's exploitation of the planet's resources were not easily healed. The land was still scarred by the remnants of the battle-cratered streets, damaged cities, and ruined forests, but the hope that had been sparked by the rebellion would not be easily extinguished. Dexter and Iris watched as the first groups of Illyrians began to rebuild. They were working together, pulling resources from the wreckage, using what little remained of the old world to forge a new one. The people of Elyria, once divided and oppressed, now united in a common cause: the restoration of their home. They had learned the hard way that true strength came from working together. "The council is gone," Dexter said, turning to Iris. "But the real work starts now, doesn't it?" Iris nodded, a small, sad smile on her lips. Yes, but it's a good kind of work. The kind that builds, not destroys. Elyria can heal Dexter. I believe that, but it will take every single person on this planet to do it. As the days turned into weeks, Dexter and Iris reflected on their journey, their shared battles, the sacrifices, and the moments of doubt and fear that had shaped their relationship. There had been times when they had nearly given up, when it seemed like the weight of the world was too much to bear. But through it all, they had remained steadfast, finding strength in each other. I never imagined this, Dexter said one evening, as they sat on a high cliff overlooking the city below. The lights of Elyria's newly rebuilt structures glimmered in the distance, casting a soft glow over the land. When I first arrived here, I thought I was just passing through. I never thought I'd be part of something like this. You came here for a reason, Dexter, Iris said, her voice soft. Everything that's happened, everything we fought for it, wasn't by chance. You've changed Elyria just as much as it's changed you. Dexter looked at her, his gaze softening. And you've changed me too. I didn't know what I was missing until I found you. Iris smiled, a bittersweet expression on her face. I think we both found what we were missing. They sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of their shared experience settle in. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since the battle had begun, Dexter felt a sense of peace. Elyria was on the path to recovery, and while the road ahead would be long, he believed in the planet's ability to heal. As Elyria began to rebuild, it became clear that its future would be shaped by the lessons learned in the aftermath of the war. The people of Elyria, once oppressed and divided, had come together in the face of their common enemy. Now they had the opportunity to build something better, a world founded on cooperation, unity, and the shared desire to protect their home. Dexter and Iris knew that the future of Elyria was in the hands of its people. The leadership of the council had been defeated, but now the planet needed new leaders, ones who would prioritize the well-being of Elyria's citizens over power and control. The challenge would be immense, but the people had already proven their strength. I think Elyria has a real chance at a new beginning, Dexter said, his voice filled with cautious optimism. It does, Iris agreed, but it won't be easy. The wounds of the past will take time to heal. The Council's legacy is deeply ingrained in the fabric of this world, but it's up to the people to decide what kind of world they want to create. Dexter glanced at Iris, knowing that she, more than anyone, understood the weight of the choices ahead. And you, he asked softly, what do you want for Elyria? I want it to be free, Iris said, her voice filled with a quiet, resolute strength. I want the people of Elyria to be free, to live without fear, without oppression. I want them to have the chance to create a future where love, compassion, and strength are the foundation, not fear and control. Dexter nodded, understanding completely. We've fought for that, haven't we? We have, Iris said, smiling softly, and now it's time for Elyria to do the rest. The future of Elyria, though uncertain, was full of potential. The planet had endured the worst, but its people were resilient. As they worked together to rebuild, they would remember the lessons learned from the past and use them to create a new world, one built on love, unity, and the shared dream of a brighter future. And as for Dexter and Iris, their journey had come full circle. They had fought side by side, sacrificed everything for each other and for Elyria. And now they could look forward to the future together, knowing that their love and their commitment to Elyria would endure. Do you think we can truly build this world, Iris? Dexter asked, his voice filled with a quiet hope. I believe we can, she replied, her eyes shining with the light of 1,000 possibilities. As long as we remember the past, honor the sacrifices, and build with love in our hearts, Elyria will thrive. And so will we. The air was thick with the aftermath of revolution, a lingering weight that hung over the newly liberated streets of Elyria. The rebellion had won, the council was no more, and the world was beginning to take its first steps toward a new future. But for Dexter and Iris, the true work was just beginning. They had fought to bring down a tyrannical regime, but now they were faced with the difficult task of rebuilding everything the council had destroyed. What came next for Elyria, and what role would they play in the new world? The fall of the Illyrian Council had sent shockwaves through the planet. The once untouchable leaders of Elyria, who had ruled through fear and manipulation, were now facing the consequences of their actions. The people of Elyria, long oppressed, were finally free, but freedom came with its own set of challenges. The question that loomed was not just how to rebuild, but who would lead them in this new era. The old leadership is gone. Dexter said, his voice tinged with disbelief as he walked through the streets now filled with the bustling energy of the newly liberated population. But what happens now? How do we move forward? Iris stood beside him, her eyes scanning the crowds. The old guard will be dealt with, Dexter. Those who held power for so long will be brought to justice, but it won't be easy. Many of them have blood on their hands. Dexter nodded. I know, but what about the people? Can they really feel safe now? Will they trust this new leadership? I think they will, Iris said, her voice soft but certain. The people of Elyria have seen what can happen when they stand together. The council tried to manipulate them, but now they know the strength they have. It will take time, but they will rebuild. It's their turn now to create the future they want. Dexter glanced at her, feeling the weight of her words. But can they really start fresh? Is it possible to erase everything the council did? The scars will remain, Iris said, her eyes filled with understanding. But the change we've set in motion will give them the chance to heal. A new era begins with the fall of the council. The people will decide how they want to shape that era. As the days passed, the first steps of a new government began to take shape. The people of Elyria formed councils of their own local leaders, chosen by the people, not imposed by a corrupt regime. It was an imperfect start, but it was a start nonetheless. For the first time in generations, Elyria had a chance to decide its own future. But for Iris, the fall of the council was not just about the planet's future, it was about her own past. She had been a protector of Elyria for so long, a weapon forged by the council's will, that now in the face of their downfall, she was forced to confront the deep, lingering wounds of her own existence. I never imagined it would be like this, Iris said quietly one evening, her voice distant as she sat beside Dexter on a balcony overlooking the city. The night was calm, but the weight of her thoughts was heavy. I spent so long fighting for Elyria, but I was also part of the system that kept it enslaved. Dexter turned to her, concern flickering in his eyes. You didn't choose to be part of that system. You were made into something you didn't want to be. But you broke free, Iris. You did that. You fought to change things. I know, she said, her voice faltering, but it doesn't make the past any easier to bear. I was created to be a weapon, a tool for their agenda. And now that the council is gone, I have to figure out who I am without them. I've spent my life serving a purpose I didn't choose. And now, I have to find a new path. Dexter's heart ached for her. He reached out gently, taking her hand in his. You don't have to find that path alone, Iris. You've already done the hard part. You've fought for this planet. You've given everything. Now you have the chance to live for yourself, to find peace, and you don't have to do it alone. Iris's eyes softened and she leaned into him. But can I ever truly find peace, Dexter? Can I really put all of this behind me? You can, he said, his voice steady. It will take time, but you can, and I'll be here every step of the way. With the fall of the council and the planet's future now uncertain, Dexter found himself at a crossroads. Elyria was changing, and so was he. His journey had begun as a simple crash landing on a strange planet, but it had evolved into something far greater, a fight for the future of a world. He had never imagined that his fate would become intertwined with Elyria's, but now as he stood on the edge of a new beginning for the planet, he had to decide what his place in that future would be. I didn't expect this, Dexter said, his voice heavy with contemplation as he sat with Iris beneath the stars. I came here to survive, but now I don't know if I can leave. Elyria's still a mess, and the people need help. Iris turned to him, a gentle smile on her lips. What are you asking, Dexter? Do you want to stay? He sighed, looking out over the city. I don't know. I came here by accident, but now it feels like I'm supposed to be here. Like this is where I'm meant to be. But I also don't know if I can do this. I'm just a guy from another world. I'm not Elyrian. You've been more of an Elyrian than you think, Iris said, her voice soft and reassuring. You've helped change this world, Dexter. You've given the people of Elyria hope. Your journey isn't over. It's just beginning. You have the chance to help shape this world into something better. Dexter looked at her. his heart swelling with a new sense of purpose. Maybe I do have a purpose here. Maybe I can't leave just yet. Elyria needs help rebuilding, and if I can make a difference, then maybe this is where I'm supposed to be. Iris smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. Then let's do it together. Let's help this planet rebuild. Let's make it something worth fighting for. As Elyria began its journey into a new era, Dexter realized that his own journey had taken on a new meaning. The struggles he had faced on this strange planet had given him purpose. He was no longer just an outsider. He was part of Elyria's future, a future built on hope, love, and the lessons learned from the past. For Iris, the road ahead was still uncertain, but with Dexter by her side, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. She had broken free from the chains of the Council, and now she was free to choose her own path. Together, they would help Elyria rebuild not just as a planet, but as a symbol of resilience, of hope, and of the power of second chances. The air was filled with the sound of music and laughter as Elyria celebrated its rebirth. After the fall of the Council, the people of Elyria had come together to create something new, something brighter. The city, once broken and scarred by years of tyranny, now radiated with life and color. Everywhere, people were preparing for the grand festival, a celebration of the planet's renewal and the triumph of its people. "I never thought I'd see this day," Dexter said, standing at the edge of the newly rebuilt city center. The ruins of the old regime were nowhere to be seen, replaced by gleaming structures of hope. This is more than just a celebration. It's a new beginning." Iris, standing beside him, looked around at the crowds of Illyrians who had gathered to celebrate. There was a sparkle in her eyes that had been missing for so long, a light that came from knowing her planet was free, its future no longer chained to the past. "It's not just for the planet," Iris replied softly, her voice filled with emotion. "It's for the people. They've been through so much. They deserve this." The festival was not just a party. It was a sacred celebration, a way to honor everything the people of Elyria had fought for. The streets were lined with vibrant banners, symbolizing the unity and strength of the rebellion. Stalls were filled with food, colorful fabrics, and handcrafted gifts from all corners of the planet. The people of Elyria had spent days preparing, gathering together to share their traditions, their stories, and their hopes for the future. The central square was filled with an enormous bonfire where the first fruits of the harvest were offered in a ritual of thanksgiving. Illyrians from every village and city gathered to light their own lanterns, each one representing a wish for the future. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers, spices, and cooking meats, mingling with the joyful music that echoed from the many instruments played by the locals. "These rituals are important," Iris explained to Dexter as they watched the festival unfold. "They remind the people of their roots, their history. It's a way to honor the past and build a better future. And it's their way of showing gratitude for everything they've overcome." Dexter added, his gaze moving over the crowd. "A celebration of what they've achieved and what they still have to fight for." The festival wasn't just a way to mark the end of a dark chapter in Elyria's history. It was a way to inspire hope for the future, hope for the generations yet to come. For the first time in a long while, the people of Elyria could look forward not with fear, but with the confidence that they could shape their own destiny. As the festival continued, Dexter and Iris found themselves immersed in the community. The people of Elyria were eager to welcome them, offering gifts and sharing their stories. Dexter, once an outsider, now felt a sense of belonging. The people he had fought beside and the planet he had come to love were now his home. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Dexter asked as he and Iris wandered through the celebration, their hands brushing together as they walked. "We've been through so much. Will we ever get the chance to just live?" Iris turned to him, a smile tugging at her lips. "We've already built something worth living for. It's not just about survival anymore, Dexter. It's about creating a life, a real life. For us and for the people of Elyria. Maybe this is our chance to build something better," Dexter said, his voice filled with a quiet determination. "To make sure they never have to go through what we went through. We can help Elyria rebuild, guide it to something stronger." Iris looked at him, her eyes warm with affection. "We can, and we will, together." As the night wore on, the festivities reached their peak. Fireworks lit up the sky, bursting in brilliant colors above the city. The music grew louder, and the people danced in the streets, their laughter echoing through the night air. For the first time in a long time, Elyria felt like it was truly alive again. Dexter and Iris stood at the edge of the celebration, watching the people dance and sing. They had been through so much to get here, but now with the fall of the council and the planet's future in their hands, they could finally look ahead. "I think we've done it," Dexter said, his voice filled with awe. "I think we've actually turned the tide." Iris smiled, her face glowing in the firelight. "This is only the beginning, Dexter. Elyria will rise and it will be stronger than ever." Elyria's revival was not just a victory for the planet, it was a symbol for the galaxy. The people of Elyria had fought for their freedom, and now they had a chance to rebuild. They had proven that even the most oppressive regimes could be overthrown, that even the darkest moments could be followed by a dawn of hope. And the message didn't just resonate with the people of Elyria, it spread beyond the planet, reaching the far corners of the galaxy. Elyria had become a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope for other worlds still under the thumb of tyrannical leaders. The struggle for freedom was universal, and Elyria had shown that no matter how dark the past, there was always the potential for a brighter future. "I think we've set an example," Dexter said, watching the fireworks light up the sky. "Elyria could be a model for other planets. If we can rebuild here, so can they." Iris nodded, her eyes focused on the horizon. "Elyria can lead the way. It's up to the rest of the galaxy to follow, if they choose to." "Do you think they will?" Dexter asked. "I hope so," Iris said, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "The people of Elyria have learned the power of unity. They've seen what happens when they stand together, and that lesson is one that can change the galaxy." Dexter looked out over the city, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Elyria had faced its darkest days, but now it was rising stronger, wiser, and ready to lead. And so together they watched as Illyria's future unfolded before them, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. The city of Elyria had begun to rebuild its streets alive with the hope of a new era. The devastation of the past seemed far behind, yet the scars were still fresh in Dexter and Iris's hearts. They had fought together, sacrificed together, and rebuilt not just a planet, but their own understanding of who they were both individually and as a couple. But as Elyria healed, Dexter and Iris faced a new challenge, coming to terms with the true cost of the choices they had made and the love they had built. Dexter had always known that Iris had sacrificed much for Elyria, but now in the quiet aftermath of the war, he was beginning to understand just how deep those sacrifices ran. Every decision Iris had made had been weighted by the responsibility she carried not just for the planet, but for her own soul. "I never realized just how much you gave up for this planet," Dexter said one evening as they stood together on a balcony overlooking the now thriving city. The sounds of the festival still echoed through the streets, but in the stillness of the night it felt as though the weight of everything had finally settled in. Iris's eyes softened, but there was an unmistakable weariness in her gaze. "I didn't do it for myself," she replied quietly, her voice tinged with both sorrow and resolve. "I did it for Elyria, for its people. But that doesn't mean it didn't cost me something. It's hard, Dexter, to give so much, to sacrifice everything, and then to wonder if it was enough." Dexter's heart ached for her. He had known Iris as the strong, unyielding protector, but he was beginning to see the cracks that ran deeper than the surface. She had given everything, not just in the battle against the Council, but in the fight to protect a planet and a people she loved deeply. And somewhere along the way, she had lost pieces of herself. "I know I can't fully understand what you've been through," Dexter said, his voice filled with empathy. "But I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm here for you. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Iris looked at him, a small, sad smile curving her lips. "I never thought I'd have someone like you by my side, Dexter. But now I know that it's not just about protecting Elyria. It's about finding peace. And finding peace means letting go of the past, of everything I've carried for so long." It was then that Dexter realized just how much Iris had sacrificed, not just for Elyria, but for their relationship. Every step they had taken together had been tainted by the shadows of her past, by the weight of responsibility she had carried for so long. Dexter knew that love wasn't just about sharing the good times, it was about standing beside each other in the darkest moments when the past threatened to consume them both. "I don't want to just be a part of your future, Iris," Dexter said, his voice raw with emotion. I want to be someone who helps you heal. I want to be someone who stands beside you as you let go of all the pain and the responsibility. Iris's eyes filled with unshed tears, and she took a step closer to him, her hand finding his. You've already helped me more than you know, Dexter. But it's not going to be easy. The past doesn't just vanish. I have to learn how to move forward without the weight of everything I've carried for so long. I'll help you, Dexter promised, his grip tightening on her hand. We'll do this together. We'll face the future not as two broken people, but as two people who are finally free to live for ourselves and for each other. As the days passed, Dexter and Iris began to navigate the difficult terrain of their relationship. The wounds of the past were still fresh, and the road ahead would not be without its challenges. But in each other, they found the strength to face those challenges head-on. Iris was learning to let go, to accept that she didn't have to be the sole protector of Elyria anymore. She could be something else, something more. And Dexter, for his part, was learning that love was not just about fighting for someone. It was about supporting them, standing by them as they faced their own demons, and trusting that they could both move forward together. You've always been the one to protect Elyria, Dexter said one evening as they sat beneath the stars, their hands intertwined. But now we get to protect each other. Iris smiled softly, her eyes filled with a new sense of peace. We both have our roles to play, Dexter, but for the first time in my life, I'm not doing this alone. And that makes all the difference. The love between Dexter and Iris was not just a bond forged through battle. It was a commitment to one another that transcended the fight for survival. It was a recognition that they each had their own responsibilities, their own burdens, but together they could face them. Together they could find peace even in a world that had been torn apart by war. I think we've learned a lot about each other in this war, Dexter said as they walked through the city, now bathed in the soft glow of the evening lights. And about ourselves. The question isn't whether we can keep going. It's whether we're willing to keep growing. Iris nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The war may be over, but our journey isn't. We have to keep moving forward together. Dexter squeezed her hand, his heart full of hope for the future. We will. And whatever challenges come our way, we'll face them together, as equals, as partners. Their relationship had been tested by the harshest of circumstances, but in the end it was their love and their shared responsibility that gave them the strength to move forward. As the world of Elyria began to rebuild, so too did Dexter and Iris. Together they would face whatever came next, not as individuals but as two halves of a whole. And in their love they would find the key to overcoming the challenges that lay ahead. The days following the battle were filled with reflection and quiet moments of introspection for both Dexter and Iris. The war had taken everything from them, loss, pain, betrayal, and yet it had also forged a bond between them stronger than either of them had ever expected. But despite their triumph, Dexter couldn't shake the overwhelming guilt that clung to him like a shadow. Dexter watched Iris from across the room as she sat quietly by the window, gazing out at the ruins of the city. The light of the setting sun cast long shadows on the walls, mirroring the thoughts that weighed heavily on his heart. He had seen her face the harshest trials, sacrifice so much for Elyria, and yet through it all, he had failed to protect her in the ways he had promised. I should have been there for you more, Dexter murmured, the guilt pressing down on his chest. He could still hear her cries, the moments when she had been pushed to her limits, and he couldn't help but feel responsible. You've been through so much, and I wasn't there when you needed me most. Iris turned to face him, her expression softening. She could see the torment in his eyes, the guilt that had consumed him since the war ended. Dexter, you've done more for me than you could ever know, but you can't carry this burden alone. I never wanted you to. But I wasn't there, Dexter said, his voice thick with emotion. I should have protected you. I should have done more. I was too focused on everything else, and I failed you. Iris stood up and walked toward him, taking his hands in hers. Dexter, she said, her voice gentle yet firm. You did your best. You fought alongside me every step of the way. You didn't fail me. Dexter shook his head. But it feels like I did. I couldn't stop them from taking you. I couldn't stop the pain you endured. So, that wasn't your fault, Iris replied softly. I knew the risks. We both knew that fighting this war would come with sacrifices, and I made my choices. You're not responsible for every pain I went through. Dexter closed his eyes, the weight of her words slowly sinking in. The guilt was still there, but Iris's forgiveness offered him a lifeline. Slowly, he allowed himself to believe it, that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't to blame for everything. But I still feel like I should have done more. Iris squeezed his hands, her eyes locking with his. You've already given everything, Dexter, and that's enough. Despite the comfort of her words, Dexter's guilt didn't fade completely. He had been her protector, her partner, and yet he had still allowed so much to happen. He wasn't sure if he would ever be able to forgive himself fully, but as he looked at Iris, he began to realize something. His love for her, their love, was the key to healing. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about moving forward together, learning from the mistakes and finding peace in each other. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive myself, Dexter said softly, but I'll keep trying. For you. For us. Iris smiled, the warmth of her affection easing his heart. That's all we can do, Dexter. Keep trying. Together. Iris, too, had her own wounds to heal. She had spent so long carrying the weight of the planet, the pain of her past, and the guilt of everything she had sacrificed. But it was in Dexter's love that she found the strength to forgive herself. She had always believed that she was the one who had to fix everything, that her past, the things she had done, would forever haunt her. But in Dexter's arms and his quiet support, she began to see that she didn't have to bear it alone. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself for what I did, Iris confessed, her voice trembling with the weight of her past. For everything I became, everything I let happen. Dexter pulled her close, his embrace offering the comfort she needed. You don't have to forgive yourself all at once, Iris. We're in this together, and together we'll heal. I've spent my whole life thinking that I had to be perfect, that I had to save everything. But maybe I don't have to be perfect after all. You never were, Dexter said with a soft laugh, brushing a lock of hair from her face. You've always been enough. Perfect doesn't exist, but love does. And that's what we have. That's what matters. Iris looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Then maybe I can forgive myself. Maybe I can let go of the weight of my past. Through their shared struggles, Dexter and Iris found redemption not just in the world around them, but in each other. The weight of the past would always be there, but they had learned that love could help them carry it. And in that love, they found a form of salvation, one that gave them the strength to move forward and to rebuild not just Elyria, but their own lives. You know, Dexter said one evening, as they stood on the balcony of their new home, overlooking the city that was slowly coming back to life. Maybe we don't need to save the world. Maybe all we need to do is save each other. Iris smiled, her heart full. That's all we ever needed, Dexter. Their love, their bond, had become the foundation for their redemption and for Elyria's. They had saved each other, and in doing so, they had become symbols of hope for a world still healing from the scars of war. Together, they would help Elyria rise from the ashes, and their love would be the beacon that guided the planet forward. Elyria had found its redemption in the rebellion, and so had Dexter and Iris. But now as they looked toward the future, they knew that their love was the key to ensuring that Elyria's recovery would be more than just a passing moment. It would be a lasting, thriving rebirth. And as the sun set on the horizon, casting golden light over the city, they both understood one simple truth. Love in all its forms had the power to heal even the deepest wounds. And for them, that love would be enough. The city of Elyria was on the brink of a new dawn, but the shadows of the past still loomed large. The Elyrian Council, with its unyielding grip on power, was not going to relinquish control without a fight. Their defeat seemed imminent, but they were far from finished. As Dexter and Iris prepared for the final confrontation, the Council was already mobilizing its forces, determined to crush the rebellion and solidify its rule once and for all. The Council knew that this would be the last chance to reclaim their control over Elyria. In the weeks following their defeat, they had retreated to their stronghold hidden deep within the heart of the planet's most fortified city. From there, they began plotting their next move, pulling every resource they had to prepare for the final battle. Dexter and Iris had proven to be formidable opponents, but the Council wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. We cannot underestimate them. Council leader Darius set his voice cold and calculating as he addressed his advisors. Dexter and Iris have already cost us much, but they are not invincible. We have the forces, the power, and the knowledge to end this. But they have the support of the people, another advisor cautioned. Their rebellion has united the masses. We risk alienating our own people if we act too harshly. Darius's lips curled into a smirk. No matter. We have the resources, we have the weapons, and we have the strength to crush them. This will be the end of them, and the end of anyone who dares challenge the Council again. The Council was pulling every resource into the fight. Massive warships, once thought invincible, were being reactivated, and their elite forces, crack soldiers trained to suppress any uprising, were being deployed in full force. The ground forces, equipped with the most advanced weaponry Elyria had to offer, were preparing for their final push to destroy Dexter and Iris once and for all. Meanwhile, Dexter and Iris were fully aware of the Council's preparations. Their final stand was imminent, and they had no illusions about the battle ahead. The Council was powerful, but Dexter had something the Council couldn't account for: his experience as a fighter and the sheer willpower that came from knowing what was at stake. "We can't win this with brute force alone," Dexter said, his voice steady but filled with determination. He and Iris were huddled in a hidden bunker deep beneath the city, planning their next move. "We need a strategy, something that will outsmart them, not just overpower them." Iris nodded, her expression serious. "The Council may have strength, but we have the element of surprise. They've underestimated us before. We use their arrogance against them." Dexter looked at Iris, feeling a surge of gratitude for having her by his side. "You've always known how to stay one step ahead of them. What's the plan?" "We need to hit them where it hurts," Iris said, her eyes narrowing. "Their power is in their control over Elyria's energy core. If we can disrupt that, we can cripple them. But we'll need to move quickly, and we'll need to have the people behind us." "The people are with us," Dexter said, his voice resolute. "We've fought for them, and they know we're their only hope." Iris gave him a small smile, the bond between them growing stronger with every word spoken, every plan devised. "Then let's finish this." The final battle began in the heart of the Council's stronghold, a massive citadel built into the very heart of Elyria. The war machines of the Council rumbled to life, their engines shaking the earth beneath them. The air was thick with the sound of approaching conflict as Dexter and Iris, joined by their rebel forces, surged forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But the unexpected came first. As the battle began, the Council unleashed a devastating weapon, a massive energy field designed to neutralize their enemies' weapons and disrupt their movements. Dexter and Iris, caught off guard, were forced to adapt quickly. "Damn it," Dexter muttered as their weapons failed to fire. "We need to disable that field. If we don't, we're done." Iris's eyes scanned the battlefield, searching for a weakness. "There's a control node just beyond the east wall," she said, pointing through the smoke and chaos. "If we can get to it, we can shut it down." Ganinter. Without hesitation, Dexter and Iris led their team toward the node. The battle around them raged on, but the two of them focused solely on the task at hand. They pushed forward the Council's soldiers, coming at them from every direction, but their resolve never wavered. As they neared the control node, an explosion ripped through the ground, throwing them to the ground. Dexter's heart pounded in his chest as he scrambled to his feet, eyes scanning for Iris. "Iris!" he shouted, panic rising in his chest. She was already moving, pulling herself up from the rubble with a determined look on her face. "I'm fine, let's go." Together, they made their way to the control node. With a final coordinated effort, they disabled the field, and the tide of the battle began to shift. The Council's war machines began to falter, and the momentum shifted in favor of the rebels. As the battle reached its peak, Dexter and Iris found themselves face to face with the leader of the Council, Darius. His expression was one of cold calculation, but there was something else in his eyes: fear. He knew the end was near. "You think you've won?" Darius sneered, his hand hovering over a control panel that would release a final weapon, one that could obliterate the city and end the rebellion. "We've already won," Dexter said, his voice filled with quiet confidence. "And you're finished." Iris stepped forward, her eyes locking onto Darius. "This is where your reign ends, Darius. You will never control Elyria again." With one final decisive move, Dexter and Iris worked together to dismantle the weapon, effectively ending the Council's rule once and for all. The battle was over, and the Council's forces were defeated. Elyria had been saved not through strength alone, but through unity strategy in the bond that had been forged between Dexter and Iris. As the dust settled, Dexter and Iris stood in the ruins of the battlefield, the remnants of the Council's regime crumbling around them. Their bodies were bruised and battered, but their spirits were unbroken. "We did it," Dexter said quietly, the weight of everything they had fought for sinking in. "We did," Iris replied, her voice steady. "But we didn't do it alone. Elyria did it. The people did it." Dexter looked at her, his eyes filled with admiration and love. "And we'll keep fighting for them, for the future of this planet." The war was over, but their work was just beginning. Together they would rebuild. Together they would lead Elyria into a new era, one built on love, sacrifice, and the hard-earned peace they had fought so fiercely to achieve. The battle had raged on for what felt like days, but now as the dust settled, Dexter and Iris found themselves standing at the heart of the conflict, facing a choice that would determine not just their fate, but the fate of Elyria itself. They had fought together, bled together, and sacrificed everything for this moment. But now the true cost of their victory loomed over them. Dexter stood on the edge of the battlefield, his body bruised and battered, his breath heavy from the exertion of the fight. The sounds of distant explosions and the cries of the wounded filled the air, but all he could focus on was the sight before him. Iris standing just a few feet away, her face filled with the same exhaustion and resolve he had seen so many times before. But this time there was something different in her eyes, something that terrified him. "Iris," Dexter said softly, his voice filled with concern. "What's happening? We're almost there. The council is finished. Why do you look like that?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, her gaze flickered to the massive energy core of the council's stronghold, glowing ominously in the distance. It was the heart of their power, the source of the weapons that had nearly destroyed Elyria. It was the only thing standing between them and the complete collapse of the council's regime. "Dexter," Iris finally said, her voice quiet but filled with an undeniable strength. "There's one final choice we have to make, a choice that could end this battle for good, but it's not a choice we can make lightly." Dexter's heart began to race. "What are you talking about? We've already won. The council is on the verge of collapse. We just need to finish this." Iris turned to face him, her expression serious, her eyes filled with a kind of sadness that twisted in Dexter's gut. "If we destroy the core, Dexter, it will end the war, but it will also destroy Elyria. The energy that powers it is too volatile. It will tear this planet apart." Dexter's mind spun, trying to comprehend the gravity of what she was saying. "No, there has to be another way. We can't just destroy everything we fought for. We've come this far. We can't." Iris stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm, her touch warm but firm. "The only way to save Elyria is to make a sacrifice. One of us has to stay behind and destroy the core. One of us has to stay and ensure the council's power is gone for good. We can't both survive this, and we can't let the planet burn." The weight of her words hit Dexter like a punch to the stomach. He had already lost so much, but the thought of losing Iris, of having to let her go, was more than he could bear. His love for her, the very reason he had fought so hard now, stood in direct conflict with the world he was trying to save. "I can't lose you, Iris," Dexter whispered, his voice trembling with the intensity of his emotions. "I won't lose you." Iris's eyes softened and she stepped closer, her hand still gripping his. "You won't lose me. I'll always be with you. But this isn't just about us. It's about Elyria. It's about the future. If I stay behind, I can make sure the planet survives. You can take the people and lead them. But you have to promise me something, Dexter." What Dexter's voice was thick with emotion. "Promise me that you'll live. Promise me that you'll make Elyria a place worth fighting for. That you'll build the future we both want to see. You can't do that if you're stuck in the past holding on to me." Dexter's chest tightened, and he closed his eyes, feeling the weight of her words. He had always known that fighting for Elyria meant making hard choices, but this was different. It wasn't just about fighting for a planet anymore. It was about fighting for love, for the future, and for everything he had come to believe in. "I promise," Dexter said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you don't have to do this. We can find another way. We can figure this out together." But Iris shook her head, the resolve in her eyes as sharp as ever. "There is no other way, Dexter. This is the only way to save everyone. And it's my choice. It's always been my choice. Iris stood at the threshold ready to face whatever was necessary to protect the future of Elyria. Her love for Dexter and her commitment to the planet had brought her to this point. But in the end, she had made a choice to give everything for a world that deserved to be free. I love you, Dexter, she said, her voice full of tenderness. I'll always love you, and that's why I have to do this. Dexter reached out to her, his hand trembling as he held hers one last time. I love you too, Iris. I always have, and I will always remember you. As the final moments approached Dexter, and Iris knew that this battle wasn't just about winning, it was about something far more profound. Their love, their sacrifice would shape the future of Elyria. They had fought side by side, and now they would face their final moments as equals. With a final shared glance, Iris stepped forward, her hand resting on the core, and activated the device that would ensure Elyria's survival. The energy that surged from the core was immense, but with Iris's sacrifice, the power would dissipate, safely saving the planet and ending the Council's reign forever. As the explosion erupted, Dexter was thrown backward, his body battered by the shockwave. When the dust settled, he stood alone on the battlefield, the wreckage of the core before him. Iris was gone, her sacrifice complete. But in that moment, Dexter knew that their love had created a turning point in the battle for Elyria. The sacrifice had not been in vain. The war was over. The council was finished, and Elyria would rise from the ashes. Dexter stood tall, his heart heavy but resolute. He would rebuild. He would lead. And he would honor Iris's sacrifice by making Elyria a place worth fighting for, a place where love, unity, and sacrifice would define its future. And in the hearts of the people, in the very soul of the planet, they would always be remembered. The war was over. The battle for Elyria had been fought and won, but the true test had only just begun. The Council was no more, its hold on the planet shattered. Elyria had survived its darkest days, but its future was still uncertain. The devastation left in the wake of the battle would take time to heal, and the task of rebuilding not just the planet, but its people was now in the hands of those who remain. Dexter stood at the edge of the once ruined city, now slowly returning to life, taking in the sight of what was to come. Elyria had been changed forever by the events of the war. Its political landscape was irrevocably altered, the old structures of power destroyed, leaving a vacuum that would take time to fill. The citizens, once silenced by fear and oppression, now found themselves at the forefront of a new era, tasked with rebuilding not just their homes but their society. They were free, but with that freedom came the heavy burden of responsibility. How do we begin? Dexter murmured to himself, his eyes scanning the horizon. How do we build a world that honors the sacrifices made? Iris, though lost to him physically, was with him in spirit. Her sacrifice had ensured Elyria's future, but it had also given him a new mission. He had promised her that he would lead Elyria toward a new era, one of hope, unity, and fairness. The people of Elyria, who had fought so hard for their freedom, were now tasked with forging a new society. There was no going back to the way things had been. The injustices of the past had to be addressed, and the new leaders chosen by the people had to ensure that Elyria's future was built on the principles of equality and peace. Could Elyria truly rebuild a fair society? Dexter was sure of one thing. The people would have to be part of the change. He could not impose peace on them. It would have to come from within, from a collective desire to forge a better future. As he moved through the streets of the city, meeting with citizens and new leaders alike, he saw a planet on the cusp of transformation. It wasn't going to be easy, but there was hope. There had to be. Will the new leadership be enough? Dexter asked one of the newly elected counselors, a woman who had risen from the ranks of the rebellion. Will they truly be able to bring stability? She smiled, though it was a weary smile. We've lost so much, Dexter, but we've learned. We know what happens when people are silenced. We will not let Elyria fall into the same hands again. The future will be different. It has to be. Dexter nodded. He had always known that Illyria's recovery was a long road, but now for the first time he truly believed that it was possible. For Dexter, the path ahead was unclear, but his love for Iris and the promise he had made to her would guide him. He had given so much for the cause, and the thought of her strength, her sacrifice kept him moving forward. There would be no peace in Elyria without peace in his heart, and he knew he could never find that until he had fully embraced the life they had fought for. "I wish you could see this," Dexter whispered, as he stood before the newly formed council, listening to their plans for a new Elyria. "You'd be proud." He could almost feel her presence beside him, her memory fueling him as he stood at the helm of this new world. The question of love and its place in the new world was never far from Dexter's mind. Could love survive in a world that had been broken and rebuilt? Could the scars of war be healed by something as fragile as love? The answer, he realized, was yes. It was the love they had shared, the sacrifices they had made for one another, that had created the future they now had the chance to build. It was love that had driven them to save Elyria, and it would be love that would keep them strong. But it was more than just their love. Dexter knew that the world they were rebuilding was rooted in a love for the planet, for the people. The lessons they had learned from their shared struggles would guide future generations of Illyrians. The future of Elyria, as much as it was shaped by Dexter's leadership, was shaped by the hearts of those who had chosen to fight for freedom. And as he had promised Iris, he would ensure that their sacrifices were honored. As Elyria began its recovery, the people found themselves reflecting on the lessons they had learned. The war had been brutal, but it had brought them together in ways they never thought possible. The conflict, though devastating, had taught them the importance of unity, of standing together to fight for what was right. It had shown them that no one person, no matter how powerful, could control the fate of an entire world. And now, as they looked toward the future, they carried those lessons with them. "Elyria can be a beacon for other worlds," one of the counselors said during a public meeting. "Our struggles, our triumphs can show others that they too can rise from the ashes of oppression. We can be an example for those still fighting for their freedom." Dexter watched as the people of Elyria gathered in the square, their voices rising in solidarity. He believed it too. Elyria had become a symbol not just of survival, but of the power of unity and love. The world had faced its darkest hour, but it had emerged stronger, ready to help others find their way. For Dexter and the people of Elyria, the battle was over, but the true work had only just begun. The lessons of the past would shape the future, but it was up to the next generation to ensure that the world they had rebuilt would be one worthy of their sacrifices. As Dexter looked to the horizon, he knew that Elyria's future was in good hands, and perhaps one day it would be a beacon for other planets, showing that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, love, sacrifice, and unity could lead to a brighter tomorrow. With the strength of Iris in his heart, Dexter walked forward into the future, ready to face whatever came next. The war for Elyria was over, and the people stood at the threshold of a new era. The scars of the past were still visible, but so was the hope for the future. Dexter, now a leader in a world he had never expected to call home, looked out over the city he had fought to save. Iris, though gone, remained in his heart, her sacrifice shaping the world they would now rebuild. As he stood there, the weight of their shared journey settled in each battle. Each sacrifice, each moment of love and loss had brought him to this point. He knew that the future of Elyria would not be easy. The road ahead would be long filled with challenges and moments of doubt. But Dexter understood now more than ever that it was love for the planet, for its people, and for Iris that would guide him. Elyria, once a symbol of oppression and despair, had become a beacon of hope and resilience. And though he would never forget the cost of that hope, Dexter felt a quiet peace. The planet would rise again, and so would its people. They would learn from the past, heal their wounds, and build a future rooted in love, unity, and sacrifice. Dexter's eyes turned to the horizon, where the first light of dawn broke over the city. With Iris's memory in his heart and the strength of Elyria's people behind him, he stepped forward into the unknown. Together they would create a world worthy of their struggles, a world that would endure for generations to come.